is the way.
This is the way.
See, this is me, Boba Fett. This is my father, Jango Fett.
Your father was a foundling.
Yes. He even fought in the Mandalorian Civil Wars.
We know quite a bit about Boba Fett, but what about Jango Fett? Where does he come from? How did he get his armor? And why was he picked to be the clone template? To find these answers, let's once again dive back into the lore, the legends, and the canon that make up the history of the Mandalorians. Before we get into it, if you're a fan of our videos, please like our content and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out and gives us the opportunity to create more content for you. Chapter 3, The Rise of Fett. In 738 BBY, Mandalore continued to grow its military presence, which became a growing concern for the Republic and the Jedi. And even though the Mandalorians were essential in fighting back both the Eternal Empire and the Sith, the Republic began a campaign against the Mandalorians in their homeworld. This conflict brought devastation to the Mandalore sector, and the planet Mandalore itself was reduced to mostly a white sanded desert. After this, many of the warrior clans scattered, and a new faction of Mandalorians rose that did away with the warrior code and instead opted to be pacifists. These Mandalorians would be known as the New Mandalorians, and they became the central power on Mandalore. Unlike the Mandalorian culture passed down from the original Tong warriors, these new Mandalorians believed strongly in non-violence and neutrality, and those who refused to reform were banished to Mandalore's moon of Concordia. Only a few Mandalorians continued the ancient traditions, and they ended up calling themselves the Akalahi, which means faithful in Mandoa, the Mandalorian language. The title of Mandalore passed on to a member of the Akalait. In 200 BBY, the Mandalorian warrior clans were responsible for a genocide of the Uthulin race. Later on, in 60 BBY, a Mandalorian warrior named Jaster Muriel became the new Mandalore. Being a strong, ethical warrior, he decided to institute cultural reforms. He wanted to instill a code of honor because many Mandalorians were dissatisfied with the dishonorable and overly savage ways present in the current Mandalorian culture. Muriel wanted to restore and reinstitute the old warriors code that had been forgotten ages ago. Thereby, he created the Super Commando Codex, which was a guideline for Mandalorian behavior, and instilled that the Mandalorians should act as highly paid soldiers and honorable mercenaries. Now, some Mandalorians opposed these reforms and decided to follow the brutal leader Tor Vizsla, who wanted to conquer the galaxy. These Mandalorians banded together and called themselves Death Watch, and those who remained loyal to Jaster Muriel recast themselves as the true Mandalorians. Now, Mandalorians were split into three factions, with the pacifists, the new Mandalorians, the honorable warriors called the true Mandalorians, and the savage conquerors called Death Watch. This led to the Mandalorian Civil War. In 58 BBY, the Civil War came to the agricultural planet of Concord Dawn. On this planet lived a farmer and a journeyman protector, which was basically the local law enforcement, named Fett. During a major fight between the true Mandalorians and Death Watch, Jaster Muriel and his soldiers had to retreat, and Fett gave the group refuge. Death Watch found out about this, and Tor Vizsla brutally interrogated Fett in front of his young son, Jango. Before Vizsla could kill Fett, his wife opened fire on Death Watch, and while ultimately Fett and his wife ended up dying, young Jango was saved by Jaster Muriel, and the young boy showed the true Mandalorians a way to escape. These Mandalorians were able to regroup in a nearby town and ambush Death Watch, taking down every one of them aside from their leader Tor Vizsla, who managed to escape the planet. After this, Jango Fett was adopted by Jaster Muriel and then became a true Mandalorian himself. 6 years after this, in 52 BBY, the true Mandalorians contracted out a job on Corta 6 to help rescue a team of security personnel. The local Corta natives put up quite the battle, and the Mandalorians took heavy casualties. Muriel ended up ordering a retreat, but Montrose, his second-in-command, refused the order and fought on. Jango Fett was in charge of leading a team to rescue the security personnel, and instead found Death Watch waiting to ambush them, and Muriel and Montrose were attacked directly by Tor Vizsla. Jaster Muriel was hit with a grenade, and Montrose abandoned his leader to die at the hands of their enemy. Montrose returned to the Mandalorians' landing zone and told the remaining Mandalorians that Muriel had died alongside Jango Fett, who tried to save him, and told the clan that Muriel's final order was to retreat and that he wanted Montrose to take command. Then, to the shock of Montrose, Jango Fett managed to return to the landing zone with Muriel's body, proving Montrose to be a liar and a traitor. The true Mandalorians renounced Montrose, and they made Jango Fett the next Mandalore, the leader of the true Mandalorians. After this, Fett proved to be an effective leader and led the true Mandalorians to multiple victories against Death Watch, leaving their rivals extremely crippled. But in 44 BBY, Tor Vizsla developed a plot with the governor of Galadran to take down his enemies. The governor contracted the true Mandalorians to put down a local insurrection, and under Jango Fett they put down the rebellion quickly. But instead of being paid for their job, The governor contacted the Jedi and claimed that the Mandalorians were murdering activists, including innocent women and children. Fett was attacked by Vizsla and Death Watch and had to flee, but on his way back to the base camp, the true Mandalorians encountered a Jedi strike team led by Jedi Master Dooku. In the ensuing shootout, 11 Jedi were taken down, 6 of which were taken down by Jango himself, something Dooku observed firsthand. Every true Mandalorian died except for Fett, who was then turned over to the governor and put into slavery, but Fett managed to escape after several years, and he recovered his armor from the governor of Galadran and managed to kill Tor Vizsla on Corellia, which dealt the final blow in the Mandalorian Civil War. After this, Death Watch scattered and Fett decided to become a lone bounty hunter rather than continue on as Mandalore. After this, the new Mandalorians picked up the pieces and established their government under the leadership of Duchess Satine Kryze. The Mandalorians who were left that maintained the traditions of old but rejected Death Watch's ideals came to be known as the Old Mandalorians, and they left the Mandalore sector altogether. Then in 32 BBY, the now Count Dooku remembered a fearless Mandalorian who was able to take down a number of Jedi. And after becoming a Sith Lord, Darth Tyrannus decided to recruit the now bounty hunter named Jango Fett to be the template for a new clone army. So join us next week to explore more of this story and to explore more of the history of the Mandalorians in Chapter 4.
So thanks for joining me today on Fatherly Fandom, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. From our families to yours, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.